So this is how we're running it. Pretend that's a battery, or you might have a scan tool and this might not apply to you. So today we're gonna replace the brake pads on this 2021 Chevy Trailblazer RS. If you got a Chevy Trailblazer, I believe that it's got a pretty good variance in a year, and you're looking to change your brake pads. And while you're in there, rotors, I won't be doing rotors in this video, but if you're looking to change brake pads, I will walk you through the steps needed to do so. I'll probably do one side and then the other side's mirrored. So if I don't do all four in this one video, it's to save time, and you guys get the gist. The front and the rear, they're basically identical, but some differences, so we'll walk through that. So let me get these cars pulled out, make some room, and we'll get at it. Okay, now that we got it all centered up, so why would you change your brakes? There's a few reasons. One, maybe you want to go with a different compound. Maybe ceramic is the way you want to go. That's the way we're going with this. I do that on all my cars. Go with ceramic. You don't really get the squeaking. You definitely don't get near the brake dust. I like them better. Maybe if you go on, and do track days and stuff and race your car, you're probably going to want to get something a little bit more aggressive. So yes, it'll create more brake dust, but you'll get a better bite. They'll tend to handle the performance a little bit better. Maybe you want, it's probably squeaking. So I'll show you on the new pads, just since they're already out, but there's a little tab on all the brake pads. Once it gets wore down to a certain point, when you hear the squeaking, it doesn't mean that they're completely gone or completely bad. It's just, that's their way of making an indicator on there so you hear it and know when it's about time to change your brakes. That's the point we reached with this. Now it's time to put brake pads on. So as far as the brake pads go, again, if you've seen my channel at all or seen any of my other videos regarding brakes or upgrading them, you know that I like to go with a company called R1 Concepts. Sorry, motorcycle going by. You know that I like to stick with a company called R1 Concepts. They have many different style brake pads. Again, with they got trucks, so they tend to take more wear and tear. They got ceramic. They got a more aggressive bite one for if you do race. They got an economy one. Just take a look on their website. You'll definitely see it. Very, very fair price for the performance that you get. I'm sure there's cheaper ones. You can go down there and buy some, Duralast Platinums and stuff like that from your auto parts store, but this is the best bang for the buck. They sell rotors, even big brake kits. So if you're into racing or want to really go all out with some rotors and stuff, they got two-piece rotors and they got all different types of stuff. All right, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. These are going to be the front, these are going to be the rear. We're going to start with the front and then do the rear. Like I said, I'm just going to do one side of the vehicle. It's going to be mirrored on the other side. So in order to save time and kind of get you guys back and going, we're just going to stick with just two wheels, the front and the rear, and then the other side is mirrored. So here we go.
First thing you're going to want to do is break your lug nuts loose while the tire is still contacted to the ground. Next step is to find yourself a good jack point underneath the car. Don't forget your jack stand. It's probably one of the most important parts. Once the vehicle is supported and rested on the jack stand, proceed to take off the wheel. Now that we have exposed the brake caliper, the bracket, the whole assembly, first thing you're going to want to do is loosen up this top bolt and the bottom one. No need to fully extract the bottom one, but the top one, yes. This will allow it to hinge open. For the front brake calipers for this vehicle, it requires a 12mm. Go ahead and loosen those up. Note the bottom one, I'll just loosen but leave it. Then I'll go back up to the top one and fully extract it. Again, this is going to allow it to hinge open but still be supported. As I'm sure you would know, make sure to keep the hardware somewhere out of the way, but yet you still remember where it's at. Don't want to lose it. As you can see, This hinge is open, it stays supported, the brake line has no serious tension on it, so we're good to go there. Next step is to locate your brake pads. Go ahead and pull them straight out. The guide pins will hold them in. You might have some little springs on there, but don't let it intimidate you. They will come out. Just might need to move it around a little bit. Right here, these are your guide pins. Some kits might come with brand new ones. I didn't purchase the new ones. I went ahead and reused these. In some cases, you could just take a wire brush to them and clean them up a little bit. As long as you apply the lube, they'll work just fine. Here's your brake pads. Inspect them, make sure they're the same as what you just took off. Notice the two brake pads, they're for one side, but this little thing is the only difference. That's going to be your indicator when the brake pad is low. It will squeak once it starts touching that point. So make sure to keep that on the outside of the vehicle so that it's easiest to hear when it squeaks. Right here is the brake lube that I always use. It's called Sil Glide. You can find it at any retail store or auto parts store. High temperature. All you need is a little bit on each ear of the brake pad. Just a little dab like that. Again on the other side. Then you'll take your finger and just kind of spread it around. Might as well cover all sides. You don't have to get crazy with it. Definitely avoid the surface of the brake pad. This is only for the slides and the little ear parts of these brake pads. Once you ensure the ears are coated and ready, remember this part goes on the outside of the vehicle. Also match the curvature of the brake pad to make sure you install it correctly. It should usually only go in one way, but you never know. Just make sure you match the curvature with the rotor. As you would imagine, you do the same steps with the rear. Once the brake pads are installed, the next step is to collapse the pistons. This is the tool that I use. They're known as the disc brake compressor tool. I'll make sure to leave that link down in the description below. Put an old pad on there, that way it helps push them evenly. This isn't a process to rush. Just take your time. Realize that you're pushing that fluid back up into the reservoir. Going too fast could damage it. Not a very common thing, but it is definitely possible. Once you push the one in a little bit, go to the other side, continue to do the same thing. Just take your time, gently push those pistons in until it's completely flush. And there we go. It bottomed out, would no longer compress. At that point, we're done. Nice and flush. Now we just go ahead and hinge it up and replace that bolt. Like so. As an added note, these are guide pins. If they do not move freely, you need to extract them, clean them, put more lube on them, put them back in. These are responsible for allowing the caliper to travel back and forth upon pressure. Go ahead and get your 12 millimeter and tighten them back up. I'm not sure their torque specs, never bothered me, just make sure they're nice and tight. Go ahead and give everything a shift back and forth, make sure it moves nice and freely, no binding. Once it moves great, you're good to go. When reinstalling your wheel, it's good practice to put your lug nuts on in a star pattern. This ensures an even tightening to the hub. Remove your jack stand and slowly lower the vehicle till the tire just touches the ground. This allows it to have still some tension and not spin, so you could put more torque down. Here we are in the rear now. Same thing applies. Break them loose, jack it up, put a stand on it, proceed to take off the wheel.
All right, as far as rear brakes go, it's becoming real common with modern cars, some of the older ones, but maybe more classy, like, you know, the Lincolns or Cadillacs or, you know, Maybachs, stuff like that. They got electric e-brake, which when you engage it, it either applies more brake fluid into the piston to make it a tighter squeeze, or it kind of screws it out a little bit like threads, and then you know, bring the plunger out more and grip on the rotor. So in order to, in this particular vehicle, when you're in park, it actually engages it. So regardless, the piston still acts like normal, but then under the, you know, the command of wanting the emergency brake, then it engages in. So you're still gonna have to collapse it like normal with that tool or whatever, just pry on it and push that piston in, or you're gonna have to thread it. Some are manual. I think a Mazda 6 around 2006 or 2007, there's threads. You thread it by hand. You can get a tool for that. These electric ones, unfortunately, I think the way to do it is to go into your computer with like a good quality scan tool, and you're able to access these rear brakes or the emergency brake system. You then, you know, engage the switch on the computer. I'm assuming it reverses polarity, which means taking the original negative positive, and then it just activates it backwards so that it retracts the motor. And then when it goes back in not normal operating mode, it goes the other way. So anyway, we're gonna mimic that. I don't have that scan tool, so not all of us have that scan tool, so we got to find other alternative sources. In the past, I had a battery that was good that I used for like bench work. I don't have that now. Right now, here's another option. If you don't have a battery, it's the same concept. Your positive, negative on jumper cables. I had to use jumper cables in this time because I have to go clear to the back. If you have your battery and you're able to walk around with it, then obviously you don't need the jumper cables. Anyway, you basically just need 12-volt source. So hook the jumper cables up. I had previously created these. It's not crazy heavy speaker wire, maybe 12 gauge, 14 gauge. You're not throwing a whole bunch of power at these, but just a little bit. And then I got them clamped negative, positive, but I just put regular ends on there. That's what I would clamp onto my battery, my 12-volt source. And then here are alligator clips. Obviously the color code tells the polarity of it. So this is how we're running it. Pretend that's a battery, or you might have a scan tool and this might not apply to you, but this is for people that without those scan tools that's able to access the computer and do chosen functions. So I'm gonna get into a better view, get a light, and I'll show you what we do. All right, so for this particular vehicle, right here is the electric clip, your positive, negative, okay? In the back here, it's got that red little safety tab. You push it in through the back, just like that. You press in this little black button, and you unplug it, okay? That's what activates the emergency brake. Now, take note, I can move the rotor right now. The difficult part is how tight it is, and it's not like a regular piston, so yes, it's loose, I can't get in there and pry it. I want to back that out a little bit. Don't worry about loosening these up right this second. Right now we're going to go in here and we're going to bring that back in. Okay, this is where I'm at. There's two prongs in there. Again, the polarity, it goes either way. You're not going to blow nothing or fry anything. But one setup, you know, you see how the negative is on the left prong. If it was on the right prong and the positive is where the black is right now, it would engage it. So all we do is reverse it. So right now, that left prong, it's now negative. I put the negative terminal on that. And then now we're just going to touch that alligator clamp on the right one, and what that's going to do, it's going to reverse that piston back in, and then you'll be able to compress it. So if you take a listen, you'll hear it retracting. Let me expose a little bit more. Can you hear it? There it is, maxed out. Pull it off, and then now we should be good to proceed to take these off and go about the normal process.
For the rear, these two bolts are 14 millimeter. Due to the design of this caliper, it's necessary to fully extract both bolts. If needed, don't be afraid to get a little pry tool on it. Just be mindful of the plastic motor that's behind this caliper. As you can see, after a little bit of gentle wrestling, finally got the caliper off. Securely set it up somewhere so it's not going to fall down or hang. Again, locate the brake pads. Do the same as you did with the front. Just kind of mess with it a little bit. Might need to get a little pry tool to get it out, but it's definitely doable. I need to wrestle it a little bit. As you can see, I used a pry tool here. No big deal. As you'd imagine, for the rear brake pads, do the same thing. Compare them to the old ones. Make sure they look exactly the same. Apply some of that brake lubricant on the ears for the slides. For this part, it's important to remember you already reversed the motor. You can use your piston compressor tool like normal. Don't forget to reattach the plug for your emergency brake. Now reinsert the two 14 millimeter bolts and tighten. It's at this point you go in the vehicle and you start it. Starting the vehicle ensures power to the brake booster. which then you slowly pump the brakes. This isn't a process that you need to rush, but just to make sure that you have your brake feel back. It will go all the way to the floor at the beginning, but just keep pumping, let it bring itself back up as it brings the pistons closer to the rotor. As soon as that's done and it's feeling normal, go ahead and try out all your functions.
Okay, and there you have it. Like I'm sure I mentioned, it's very important that before you take off, after doing a brake pad job or any brake job, with the car running so that your brake booster works, take your foot all the way down to the ground. You're gonna have your pistons are in now, so you need them to clamp. So put the pedal all the way down slowly, just steady, no need to rush it. Let it come all the way back up on its own, and then push it all the way back down. Repeat this step until you start getting your pedal back. Also, I don't know if you noticed or not, I made sure that the emergency brake engaged. You'll hear the motor running. It'll sound like it's tightening up. That's when it's finally fully reached out there again. We'll just go through the series of steps. Be patient, but you want to double check everything before you just take off down the road, because if you just put it in drive and just take off, you never know what'll happen. And if you have no brakes and nothing works, then you know it can't end well. So as far as the job itself goes, it's complete. As you may know, go ahead and go down in the comments if you have any questions, concerns, maybe even some advice, some tips for anybody else that's watching. Again, I understand that you can use a scan tool. I use a bench battery, or in this case I had to jump it because I didn't have a bench battery no more. However, if there's anybody down there that has more tips on either this vehicle or another vehicle that could help anybody in the future, please chime down below. We're all together on this. So until then, you guys be safe. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.